Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
And Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here is a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out.
All right, welcome to the Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
this podcast.
This podcast, as always, we're your host Blake and my brother
Brooks.
So another podcast in the books. As always, remember to like and subscribe. We like doing these things, so make sure you give us all your bad feedback so we can be better. And if you follow us on Twitter at @CHusker_corner and on Instagram, just Cornhusker Corner. So what is it? Third off-season podcast?
Third off-season podcast. Podcast.
Yeah, before
in the words of Josh Pate, it sort of feels dirty to say off season, right? Yeah, that's what he's always talking about. You know, there is no off season, and you know that's more true. And there's some truth to that statement. Obviously, nobody's playing games right now, but spring games are relatively important, especially these days when it comes to the transfer portal and how quick things move in college football. So there is still a lot of news and a lot to pay attention to. Even if you're not fully invested in every tidbit of news, you'll still hear about stuff here and there.
Yeah. Now before we hop into the things that we have to discuss, what's been happening? What you been up to in the off season?
Not much. Just preparing for my trip to Nebraska. Mm-hmm. That's really. I've been training. I've been
what like making your own runza? Like what have you been doing?
No, I've been doing up downs, and I've been doing stair runs, and I've been doing all the stuff I'm going to need to do because I'm going to try to get us some field views in multiple different areas and good video that we can actually show on this podcast from my perspective at the actual game. So I've been training. It's been a grind.
So what I hear is that you're planning on streaking at the spring game.
Absolutely.
You want to recreate that little cancer boy moment, and except for all the security guards chasing you.
This actually pisses me off. Because why are you sitting there saying the quiet part out loud? Now they're going to be tipped off to it. They're going to be ready to go. And I was really relying on the element of surprise, but no.
I'm sorry. Now you
but just working and listening to Husker podcasts here and there as they come along, looking at tidbits of information, some sights and sounds videos from practices. Mm-hmm. Those are always fun to look at, and working and schooling and going to school as well.
Schooling.
What about
nice.
you?
Nice.
What about you?
I'm just married life. Preparing for my 30th birthday here soon. So preparing mentally and spiritually and financially for that, because I feel like I'm gonna need a lot of support from Uncle Tito.
You remember that one Full House episode? You remember that one Full House episode where Danny Tanner turns 30 and he keeps looking at the camera and breaking the fourth wall and going 30, like
no, that makes me really, really sad to know that was a top line on Full House.
Yes,
and now that's where my life is.
And he already had three children and two. I mean, one of them was like full grown, right? I mean, I don't remember that much about it, but so 30. That's a big one, man. That's a big one.
Man, I only have two kids that are, completely covered in fur. They lick themselves all the time.
God, I hate you right now. I hate you so much. People who talk about their dogs like they're kids, ironic. Yeah. Oh yeah. Even joking around. It's like, ooh.
But if you've ever, you've had dogs. I mean, you know that puppies, especially because we just got a puppy this past September, so he's still a puppy and he's a lot of work. I'm not one of those people that's like, well, babies have their things, but babies sleep. No, I mean, puppies are hard. I mean, you have to worry about your kid like peeing and pooping on himself, so
True.
It's not like he's gonna poop on the floor. But that's really where the plus side stops.
Plus, you got to watch out for signs of gender dysphoria. Oh no, I mean, no. I loved the first sentence of what you said. You said you've had dogs. You're right. That has never been a truer sentence than it is right now. I've had dogs. Unfortunately, announcement for the podcast / just a shout out to my befallen friend Buster Brown. He was my dog for 14 and a half years. Blake was in the family when we got him. He's not in the family anymore. No. Once you move to Florida, once you become Florida man, you're Florida man family now. You're
So by that logic, I wasn't family starting when I left for college.
You didn't go to college in Florida?
No, but I haven't lived in that. I haven't lived in
The key-
your house.
That's the key. The key variable I mentioned was Florida. We'll see how that goes in 10 years. You'll be jet skiing in the Everglades. Anyway, so yeah, we lost Buster. He was a great guy, really good guy. He gave great hugs. He loved food a little too much, and his pancreas gave out on him, unfortunately, and stopped eating, and it was really hard. But he lived a long and happy life, and it's sort of for both of us, because I mean, I was talking to Mom about this, right? It's sort of like it's not just that Buster, it's not just that we lost Buster, which is sad in itself, but like Tippy knew Barney knew Buddy briefly, Buddy knew Bogey briefly, and then Bogey knew Buster. So it's like all of our family dogs were connected for like 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And now the last one is gone. And it's sort of like the end of...
Hey, that's not true. Because Lincoln met Bogey and Buster.
Right. I agree with it. But Lincoln is you and Megan's dog. Right? When we got Buster was the family dog. Same with Bogey.
When Mom eventually gets a new dog, that puppy can meet Lincoln. And the cycle is still there.
I get what you're saying. But you get what I'm saying, from the early family days when we were all in the same house and stuff.
I mean, geez, how many Nebraska head coaches did Buster have?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's see. We got Buster in 2008. 2009. Yeah, because we lost Buddy in 2008, right?
Yeah, so we might have gotten him in December. Did we have him before that Christmas? Whatever. That's
we knew. Remember, we knew we were going to get him in like November, but we couldn't pick him up until like January or February or something like that.
Okay, so it was 2009. So it's 2009. So
we met him in like 2008 though.
Pelini, Riley, Frost,
and then Matt Rowell. Yeah, Matt Rowell.
I mean,
And you know what? That's a good transition, because before we hit on any topic specifically, I'm sure you've been at least peripherally paying attention. I've been paying attention like it's my job every day. I mean, it's not my job, but I enjoy it. I go on walks and listen to random people talk about Nebraska and stuff. It's fun. But anyway, so any overall feelings or observations, anything just generally you noticed that you just want to mention?
Well, I think on the last podcast, I talked about not seeing or looking at any footage of Sims play, Jeff Sims, and since then I have. So I watched him play, and I do think he's a really good athlete, and he's not as elusive as I thought, but he reminds me a lot of how Jalen Hurts plays. And I think you said that last time. So he really reminds me of that.
Another thing. What are you basing it on? Are you basing it on literally the practice footage they've released of them just doing like 5-step drops and stuff?
No. From his previous footage.
Oh, so you've looked at it since
for the past couple years.
Oh, so you've looked at like his
Yeah,
Georgia Tech tape and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at Georgia Tech. So
He's a
so
smooth
based on
runner.
that-
He's a
very
smooth runner. He reminds me of Vince Young. I mean, to be honest, Vince Young.
Jay-
That's what he reminds me of.
Hurts.
Yeah, but I mean, even more Vince Young because he's got that long gait, right? Jalen's smooth as well, but Jalen doesn't have that long of a gait.
Mm-hmm.
He has a long gait, but Vince Young though looked like a gazelle runner, like just long legs,
Yeah. I think and then one more thing, just completely QB related because I'm biased.
Yeah.
That's one of the only things I pay attention to.
Right.
Is watching those sights and sound videos and seeing not Brock Purdy, Chuba.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, he's still on the team.
I've heard this floated around on other podcasts, and I've tried to just take our own notes and do our own thing as much as possible. But this is a relatively good question and relevant for what you're talking about. I mean, and this could be my overall feeling and observation. Is like, of that quarterback room? Like, someone's gonna leave, right? Someone's gonna leave. I know who you'd want to leave first. You just basically talked about it.
Not necessarily true.
I mean, right, Purdy, right? You'd want Purdy to leave first out of all of them.
No,
Is that
because
a fair assessment?
No, because I don't think Purdy's a quarterback.
Okay, then let me ask you the question. Like, let's say we have let's say we have 3 quarterbacks that leave, just because that is like this. I think the ceiling of what could happen. We're just fans. Let's just preference this. Like, what are your preferences? Who would you like to not like? Let's say this right off the bat. We wouldn't like to see any of them leave. I mean, we have no ill will towards anybody.
Who's the most likely? Do you think is going to leave?
Yes.
Just based on where they would be in the depth chart.
Yeah. Who do you think would hurt the team the least? By leaving. That type of thing. Patrick O'Brien type thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Torres is your number one.
Torres, probably wouldn't hurt the team all that much. He's young, inexperienced, so it's not. And I've seen his tape. I know he's a good player, but just he might get buried in that room, and he might not want to stay around. And I don't think it would hurt us all that much.
Yeah. I like his attitude though. I think he's a good kid, man.
Yeah.
I think he's a good kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then probably. Probably Logan.
Really?
Probably Logan.
He wouldn't even be on my list.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're up to date with stuff that's happening. So,
Sure. Yeah. 100%. The way. Okay. Let me just assess your Richard Torres pick.
Wait. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm just gonna flip Chuba and then Logan. Chuba then Logan.
So Torres, Chuba, then Logan. Yeah. Okay, that sort of makes sense. But here's the way I'm thinking about it. The way I'm thinking about it is your Torres pick makes a lot of sense because Torres is early on in his development process. I think he's got a great attitude and a great head on his shoulders, and I think there's going to be an offense out there that needs a quarterback that is going to be much more suited for what his raw skill set is, which obviously we haven't seen him play yet, but upon everything I've heard and everything I've seen, he's much more of a minimalist movement pocket passer, which is a type. I mean, like we've talked about with Tom Brady, right? He's an incredible athlete because he's so precise and intentional with his movement in the pocket and knows exactly where he's going and where all the threats are, right? So Torres is that could develop into that type of guy. Well, with this offense, I mean, on its face, it sounds like it's going to be a lot more run heavy with implementing QB runs into things. So the Torres pick makes a lot of sense to me. I probably would put him, I didn't even think about him, but as you mention it, I probably put him as a number one. And for that same reason, that's why Smothers isn't even on my list. I just think Smothers has such a ceiling with his athleticism, and you never know what's going to happen with this QB depth chart. Logan is on record by saying he just likes it here. He likes his teammates. He likes living in Nebraska. He likes the end.
And just from probability standpoint of everything that he's gone through, he's had so many chances. His stock has gone up at certain points where he could have just, like when he's gotten passed over. Like
he's a fan favorite.
You're
He's
right.
a fan favorite. A lot of people talk about him. You're not the only one that talks about him.
Yeah. No, I know. But yeah. So what about?
Okay. Yeah. So I agree with you on that Torres pick on number one, and then I would probably go with. Man, I'd probably go with Chuba as that second pick, just because, man, again, good kid, comes from a good family, and I think there probably honestly is an offense out there that probably fits Chuba. I just am nervous with Chuba because Chuba is, as we talked about, even going into last year, he self-described himself as a gunslinger who likes to take risks. Now, to me, that screams like American Athletic Conference quarterback. And I'm not trying to be demeaning. You know what I mean? Those types of quarterbacks who are just gamers and just fly by the seat of their pants in those group of 5 conferences. So I think he could find a real spot there where he could shine. And I do think he does have a decent raw skill set. I just say Chuba because I'm just too nervous with him in the game. None of the other quarterbacks would make me nervous like Chuba makes me nervous. There's just something about the way he operates in the pocket that just feels a little hesitant and rushed. Frantic. That's a great way to put it. Frantic.
He plays with Tom Barr breathing down his neck.
Anyway, so my third pick, and this is probably the hardest one because I don't want 3 quarterbacks to go. But if 3 quarterbacks go, I mean, and this is via Sean Callahan and all them. If 3 quarterbacks go, Casey's probably going to be one of them.
I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah. I mean, and this isn't a preference pick; it's just a logical pick, I suppose. Because we're going to have a QB battle, and Casey is going to go against Jeff Sims, and it's interesting because they both have different skill sets, and I think as far as college ceiling, like Casey's got a pretty high college ceiling. I think he does. He operates in the pocket really well. He makes good reads to the short through medium throws. People like to talk. I mean, we're on record saying this. People like to talk about how good his deep ball is. It's better than anything we've had here. It is. I'll give him that. But it's not by any means elite. I'm not a quarterback, but it's not by any means elite. He missed multiple people wide open last year. Overthrow, underthrow, a couple different times. Usually, he was good for 1 or 2 of them a game. And that was true at Texas as well. But I don't want him to leave. But I think if we do lose 3, like he'll be included in that.
That's interesting, and I did think about that. But he's already transferred once. He has 1 year of eligibility left. Where else is he really going to go? I mean, he didn't have a bad year. I mean, he had a good year, but he's kind of. I think if he was going to have transferred, he would have already done it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have waited to spring ball. I mean, he got hurt and everything and had the surgery, but still, I mean, you have a whole, Adrian didn't wait till spring, and he got hurt, and he just went and left.
I don't think he'll transfer. I don't think he will. I'm just saying if there's going to be 3, he'll probably. Yeah. I think he's got that dog in him, and I think we saw it last year. He can rise up. And his dad went out and basically spoke for him and said, no. Like, Casey's the starting quarterback. He's coming back to be the starting quarterback, and he's here to fight for it. And I love that. That's awesome. I hope that we have a QB battle all through fall and throughout the year, to be honest, because that's a good problem. But that being said, man, I don't know. I just don't know. I think that Casey has a really good head on his shoulders, and I'm sitting here in my room in my parents' house. So, I mean, he shouldn't listen to me, but I think that he has a really good head on his shoulders, and Matt Rule is a coach developer. He is the perfect guy to look at him and say, you know what? Like, I can be pretty good if I go here and try to play football, but I can be great if I'm a coach. And I know Matt Rule is the guy to talk to if that's what you feel. I think, so
Casey,
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, and I think Casey is going to be a really good coach.
Yeah, he's a really smart football mind.
Really
seriously.
Smart.
Yeah.
I
mean, he's been in 4 different offenses. He's had to learn 4 different offenses. Yeah. And by all means, he's been in the QB battle at the 1 or 2 position in each one of those offenses, fighting for the starting role or getting reps at it at any time. So respect to him. But that's my honest opinion. I just think he would excel as a coach. But So speaking of coaches, yeah, the return of Frank Solich. I almost called this banner Matt Man and the return of Frank Solich. But it just didn't work. Anyway, so yeah, I thought this was really cool as well. So we've long talked about Husker football. We've talked about Husker football on the airwaves on this channel for 2 years at this point. But we've talked about it amongst ourselves for our whole lives. So this has been a discussion point forever, and it's that in 2003 when Frank Solich was fired after the 9-win year, and Steve Peterson was the athletic director, and they had the hullabaloo of a coaching search to get Bill Callahan. That was the beginning of the end for let me put it this way, a little slightly more eloquent way. It was the beginning of the end for the strong foundation, at least the perception of the strong foundation that was the administration of Nebraska football. All of a sudden, it
was the end of Nebraska Bama.
Yeah. All of a sudden, people looked at Nebraska as a job where, well, that head office, that's going to be tough to deal with, right? They just fired a 9-win coach who was Tom Osborne's prodigy, yada, yada, yada. And not only that, but he vindicated himself. He went off and he would have been a Hall of Fame college head coach simply for what he did at Ohio. They hadn't had a winning record. They hadn't been to a bowl game for 30 years before he got there. Yeah. And then he's taking them to, Bill Bush and them joked about this because Bill Bush was the head coach, or not the head coach, was a coach of the team that Frank beat in the Idaho Potato Bowl in 2012, and they lost it by a point, and so they were teasing each other about it anyway. But yeah, so I just think that it's Trev. This is just you gotta tip your hat to Trev on this one because he has his finger on the pulse of the fan base so well. This is such a really, really good symbolic gesture. It's first of all, even if there was no wrongful firing. Even if it just fizzled out, whatever, Frank deserves to be honored for what he did here, on its face, for sure. Yeah. But when you add all that in with the new regime and with the feelings of the administration, the unity that you feel around the program right now, this feels so like the right time to do this. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm going to be there for it.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting. It's there's been a bunch of hullabaloo about is Nebraska cursed, and this where the curse happened, and all that, and kind of like what you were saying, and maybe bringing him back turns things around. That would be hysterical. Honestly, it would be when the Phillies won the World Series, when they put a little William Penn statue on the top, so because no building was supposed to be higher than that. Right. And then that's the year they won the World Series. Yeah, it would be it would be like one of those anecdotal things that everybody on ESPN talks about, even though it has no bearing.
Yeah,
people do that stuff every year to try to do certain things. But I think it's really cool that they're honoring him because he kind of like Pelini as well. You never lost more than 9 games. Never won more than 9 games.
Yeah, he also vindicated himself. Whatever. He also vindicated himself as a head coach at Youngstown State. He was great over there.
Yeah. So we've done that twice.
So,
yeah. Yeah, but you're right.
Eventually, we need to bring Bo back for sure. Eventually, we need to bring Bo back. We all love Bo.
Yeah. So, but
and Bo loves Nebraska deep down. He does.
Yeah. But you're right. Trev doing that really does have a pulse on what Husker fans and the program really needs, and it doesn't need any more black clouds. Eventually, just because of how Nebraska is, Scott Frost was probably going to be welcomed back with open arms.
I hope they do. That's next year's spring game.
Next year.
Literally.
Yeah. But there's it's good optics, and it's good that they're honoring Solich like that because he was the head coach when both of us really fell in love with Husker football. So he was the first coach I really remember.
Yeah. I mean, not only that, he was a legendary assistant. That was a key cog in Tom Osborne's whole coaching staff since the early 70s, I believe, maybe even late 60s, but early 70s, I know for sure. So Frank is a Nebraska. He's a legend here. So he deserves it. But I also just think like, yeah, it's a symbolic gesture, but also think about it this way, man. Like they could have done this anytime in the last 20 years. You know what I mean? The circumstances had to align and be proper. You had to have the right guy at the athletic director seat. You had to have the right guy at the head coaching seat. You had to have everybody on board to do this. And you had to have Frank look at it from a distance and say, okay, now. You know what I mean? And I don't think he's doing that with Sean Eichhorst. And respect to Bill Moose, I think he's a good guy, but he was at his ranch all the time. I don't think he's doing that with Bill Bush either, or Bill Moose either. Sorry, Bill Moose. but yeah, so shout out to Frank. I think that's going to be cool. I'm excited for it. So yeah, let's transition into some current spring stuff. We're I think 11 practices in to the to spring practice. They only allow 14 these days, which to me is just crazy. 14 practices is nuts. But anyway, we found out some stuff. One of the things that I think is most interesting is a new number tradition that they're starting out. Now people, will say, oh, this is copying Colorado or whatever. Colorado's just like posting all their stuff nonstop. Like a lot of teams do this, and they have for a long time. And Colorado's is unique. I'll give them because they're doing it like it seems like they're doing every number. I don't see numbers out there on a lot of their footage. But anyway, so focus on us. Anyway, so the 0 through 9, those single digit numbers, those are basically earnable. Like you have to earn those on both sides of the ball. And I think that's interesting. I like new little wrinkles like that thrown in. Obviously, any tradition like this stems from the black shirts. Really, I mean, if you're talking about earning a jersey, like we're the OGs. So I'm still curious to see as to like what they do with the whole black shirt tradition, because it hasn't really been mentioned so far. And you know what? That's good. I think that's probably good. But so what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, too much emphasis is put on the black shirts for sure.
Agreed.
To the detriment of some of these guys' progression as players. But
I mean, look, you remember me reading that wonderful article by Brandon Vogel about the explanation of where the skull and crossbones came from and the whole black shirt tradition. Very cool. It's very cool. But yeah, it doesn't need to be a dominant headline and something the coaches ask all the time. For sure. I think that's cool. Gives a little bit of, incentive and something to work towards. Builds camaraderie, competition. All good. Yeah, I think it's cool too.
I'm just switch now because I know nothing about this.
Oh yeah,
but I've been seeing it. I've been when I watch some of those sights and sound videos, I see gray jerseys and I'm like, are they hurt? But then I saw somebody tackle and I was like, no, they're not hurt.
No, they're not
what
hurt.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's a person who's playing both sides of the ball. So that's who it is. They're
bipositional.
They're bipositional. They're transposition. Anyway, no. So yeah, they have multiple positions on both sides of the ball. Anyway, so there was a couple people who I wanted to point out with this. AJ Rollins switched positions. AJ Rollins used to be a tight end. He was sort of a little bit buried in the lineup, but we saw him in the spring game last year. He looked good. He made that one catch. But yeah, AJ Rollins switched to D end, and supposedly that's his position. Like he had that gray jersey on for like 2 days, and then he went to the coach. He went to the coach. Yeah, and he was like, "This is my position." So, and Rule went out of his way to point it out. He was like, AJ Rollins is making maybe the most sacks out of anybody on the team right now. Yeah. So that's maybe an interesting development. I just thought the gray jerseys, the color code jersey is very, everything is very intentional that this staff does. Like one thing I heard mentioned was that they have a guy who is basically like the old dress code checkers before you walked into chapel in the morning at Westmont. He's basically like making sure like they have a guy at the entrance to practice, like making sure all their chin straps are right and making sure they have the right socks on and making sure all that stuff's correct before they even step out onto the field. That type of stuff. Everything's just very detailed and intentional, which is something that this program's been lacking for quite a bit of time. We haven't really had detail guys in here since probably Bill Callahan. But anyway, so that's an interesting development, I think.
I mean, there was a couple of guys that like it's really hard to tell because they don't put the names on the back of those jerseys either. But there was some people that were working out with the receivers, and then vice versa with the D-backs. A couple guys, I just couldn't tell who, but I saw them like doing drills that were both, and I was just like, I was confused.
Yeah, it seems like they just have like team drills. Like it seems like they have obviously they have offensive and defensive sections of practice. You have to, but yeah, a lot of the practice that's been released to media just seems like team stuff. I mean, but yeah, it's interesting to watch for sure. They look good out there. I mean, it's hard to tell any of this. It's time, but Matt Rule's on record saying we're gonna see a real game for the spring. I mean, he even said the QBs will be live. That's what he hopes. So that's encouraging. The QBs have been live in all of the scrimmages. And the scrimmage, which is huge. We haven't had that here in a long time. The QBs have been like a precious snowflake. Like, oh no, we only get like 1 4-star every 3 years. We need to preserve him. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, to the other coaching staffs, like you had Adrian especially the first 2 years. You had Adrian, and then you had
Luke McCaffrey.
Okay. Oh my God.
You remember that year when it was like a QB battle?
Yeah, the COVID year.
Dude, that is so like looking back, like I'm sure Luke's a nice guy, but that is so disrespectful to Adrian.
Yeah. He was playing like crap though.
What?
Like, he was playing real bad.
Yeah, you're right about that. I tend to look back at Adrian with rose-colored glasses. There was good and bad.
Yeah. But anyway.
So Matt Rule's had some statements on press conferences I sort of want to dive into. So he had one from let's get this one. So he had one from yesterday or 3 days ago that is interesting. And this is Matt Rule on Garrett McGuire via Husker Online. And it's interesting because I've always wondered this question about Nebraska football. We talk so much about the fans and how much of an asset it is, right, to have fans like we do, but not as much emphasis is made on the potential drawbacks, i.e. narratives get back to people. They always do, right? At a place like Northwestern, narratives are probably getting lost left and right, and coaches probably rarely even hear about things. But at Nebraska, coaches hear everything. So he was here, our wide receiver coach is 24 years old.
Yeah, he's chicken little out there.
Yeah. And so people have questioned it. And rightfully so, 24 years old, but to me, as from what I've seen at this section, I'm impressed with them. But let's hear what coach has to say.
How would you evaluate his first stint as a position coach for you?
I think it's been great. I mean, I think unfairly, I don't know if it's unfairly, but he's had a lot of people question, him, right? Which really honestly hurts us in recruiting. We're out there recruiting and people are following us and they're like, well, I keep hearing this narrative. It's coming from our own people. I'm like, so we have to battle that a little bit. But, I always look at things in my life at like what I want my son to play for him, and I'd want my son to play for Garrett. I don't know if you guys probably don't see the second half of practice, do you? Like we do team outside and they throw 7-on-7 inside. He runs the whole passing game. Like he knows the quarterbacks, progressions, running backs, tight ends, receivers. So I think I think the receivers are one of our stronger groups are coming on, and I think he's done a really good job. So I think as he starts to churn out NFL prospects, the top recruits in the country will realize that if they play for Garrett, they're not going to just get someone who's a hype guy. They're going to get a really good coach who's also going to care about them off the field.
So the way I sort of looked at that when I first heard it and when I have looked at it again is Matt Rule's super nice. He's very eloquent, and he's got very, very nice ways of putting things, even when he has a problem with something.
Yeah.
I look at this as the first fight. Like if we were in the honeymoon phase, you know what I mean? Like this is the first, like, oh, you know, like, oh,
Yeah, kinda
they
like,
they didn't do the dishes when I asked them to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought that was an interesting thought, and it's just like, yeah, maybe in certain respects this is a hard job because of the location, which is what everyone cites, and the fans are an asset, which is what everyone cites. But this is also a hard job because of the fans in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of eyes on this program. I mean, Matt Rule has met with the media, it seems like 50 million times at this point. Every 5 seconds, there's a new press conference.
It's kind of that. I don't think he's going to be the one to like beat around the bush with that kind of stuff, because he was hired, you know, and he says this, I was hired to do a job, and it's kind of like, am I the coach and you're the media? So maybe stay in your lane.
Yeah.
He said that. I mean, you got that feeling, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, it's funny, like watching some of the coach videos and stuff, like he is one of the ones I'm actually most hyped about at this point, because like looking at the way he coaches on the field and the amount of energy and passion that he has behind his coaching, it's like, look, there are some pitfalls that can arise with you being as young as you are in that position, because, you know, leadership, it just is what it is. That's human dynamics, and that's why it's being questioned. Sometimes, you know, if you have a player that you used to play with, I'm sure Josh Fleeks respects Garrett, but they used to play together. I mean, they're almost the same age. Josh has a son or a kid. I don't know if it's a son or a daughter, but you know, so it's like, he's going to have to be hard on you. Garrett's going to have to, he's your coach, you know, he's going to have to be hard on you. So I think they'll be mature enough to handle it. They seem like they are. Garrett's been around coaching for a long time, so I bet he just knows how to handle things, and when certain situations arise, he's just seen it. But yeah, so interesting quotes from the coach. Another interesting quote from the coach that sort of, oh man, it just got me going. And if it doesn't get you going, like, man, like he's just saying what we're all thinking, like what we want to say, you know. Let me just play it, because slides. No, sorry. Let me just play it because it totally speaks for itself. Hang on. Is this the one? No, sorry. My bad. Technical difficulties.
You should be better at this.
I should. It's this one. Yes.
It takes what it takes. And so, you know, there's some, you know, one of the most dangerous things is when guys kind of know what to do. So they can kind of do it. Like, you can't figure out how to do your job until you know what your job is. And so we have a lot of guys still at that level one, like trying to learn what it is. And we can make excuses for them, but we're just trying to change the expectation level of our guys, right? Like, we're not here to try hard. We're not here to lose and thank the fans. We're here to win. And so winning, it happens now. It doesn't happen in the fall. So the guys who really know their jobs really well, guys who, we got some walk-on players who should probably be on scholarship. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, you are what you produce. And so I just want the guys to understand, like, hey, I own the way I practice. Someone has a phone call here. I own the way that I practice. I own the way that I prepare. I own the result, right? And so the whole, like, coach didn't give me a chance, or, you know, coach, trying to get rid of all that. I think when you give that gift to young people that we're in control of our futures, they can take off. And so winning, it happens now. It doesn't happen in a lot of guys still at that level. We're not here to try hard. We're not here to lose and thank the fans. We're here to win. And so winning, it happens now.
Right there, he's like, he's looking, he knows. He's like, I just spit some bars.
Yeah, you can see it in his eyes. He's like, oh, hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
Yeah. And he did. That's exactly, I mean, that is a great quote. We're not here to try hard. We're not here to lose and thank the fans. I mean, and people misconstrue that as a shot at the last staff. It's not a shot at the last staff. He's just acknowledging the reality of what the fans have been going through. Mm-hmm. Because we're not demeaning Scott Frost for his, you know, thanking the fans and largely being positive through all of it, right? I mean, we can generally say that. Mm-hmm. That's fine. But, like, dude, that's just such an eloquent way to put, like, no, like, don't worry. Winning is my number one priority. Like, that's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah.
We're not here to lose and thank the fans. I mean, oh man.
No, it's good. It's good. I actually did see that one. So
yeah. Epic.
I mean, but for me, like, I think he's really great. And having a coach that's really good at press conferences, just in general, is a breath of fresh air. Because have we ever had one? Because Osborne wasn't very good at press conferences.
Yeah. I mean, he's eloquent, but he's just very soft spoken, like he's incredibly eloquent, but very, very soft spoken. It's not like he's going to have any mic drop sort of viral moments.
Yeah. Right? So like, I mean, I don't remember Callahan all that much, but coming from the NFL, he probably was pretty good at him, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember him that much either, but from what I've heard recently about people who've worked with him, the media who covered the program at the time, and people who like Steve Sipple at Husker Online, who's covered the program for 30 years, maybe more than 30 years at this point. He's just seen all the coaches. So like when you go to all those practices, and back in Callahan's day, I believe a lot of the practices were open. So you go to a lot of those practices.
Yeah.
And then you see the contrast with Riley and Bo, and you just see how they run their programs in different ways. And what Sip said about Callahan is that Callahan is like the most detail-oriented coach Nebraska's maybe ever had. And Matt Rule's of that same vein.
Yeah.
Like just very detail-oriented.
Yeah, and Matt has a very good we're on first name basis, by the way. I'm closer to his age than you are, so I can say that. But anyways, but he's really good at having those fiery speeches that that feel like you're watching a football movie, but not in like the cheesy way. Like you're watching Remember the Titans, not Glory Road.
Yeah, or Herb Brooks' speech from Miracle.
Yeah.
Screw 'em. Yeah, we all know he didn't say that. We all know what he really said. But yeah, I agree with you. Every time I very much grow in respect every time I see Matt Rule speak. Every time I see him speak, my respect for him just grows. I mean, because he's just very eloquent. The way he puts things are like, he's saying coach speak in certain ways, but not really. He's just choosing what to give you and what not to give you. It's not like he's just making vague generalizations. So yeah, I really like what I hear from Matt and a lot of his staff as well. I like what I hear from them as well. So
Coach Rule to you, just to remember.
Yeah, you're right. I'm in the program. Yeah. I still got that preferred walk-on for long snapper here pretty soon. Anyway, so one more thing I want, a couple more things, but one more quote from a press conference that I wanted to touch on. So Nouredin, the way you pronounce his name is it's like Nuhadin. It's like we can't pronounce it. Like it's like Nugadin. It's like something, but everyone calls him Nuri. So Nuri Nouili, who was a starting lineman in 2021 and really came on strong, was probably, I mean, if not our best lineman, top two.
We know why, but.
Yeah. So if took me a split second to get it, but yeah, that's funny. No, possibly. I mean, but anyway, so he has a lot of potential, a lot of NFL potential. And this isn't coming from me. This is coming from people like Dr. Rob. I mean, Dr. Rob talks about Nuri and Teddy Prochazka being what he thinks are probably our best two linemen. Anyway, so Nuri had a statement yesterday in his press conference just about how he messed up last year with the I say tainted supplement because I'm an MMA fan and that's what everyone just says. Tainted supplement. No, he with getting caught for PEDs and got suspended for a year. So I just thought it was worth it to watch this as well. He's an eloquent young man.
Before we get into the questions, I would like to say something. The day I found out I wasn't allowed to play this past year was one of the hardest days of my life, and I've not only hurt this team and the fans, hurt my family, and I can assure you I hated myself more than anyone else did. My parents have never been able to watch me play in person, and that broke me. This past year was hard for everyone on this team, for all the coaches that have came and gone, for all the people that have watched.
Someone's just mowing the lawn in the background. Sorry. Hang on. Let me go back 5 seconds.
This past year was hard for everyone on this team, for all the coaches that have came and gone, for all the people that have watched us, for everyone. This university has given me the opportunity to play at the highest level, and I messed that up. Now that I'm back, I promise you and everyone out there that I would rather die on the field than have to watch another minute from the sideline. I'm giving everything for the end, and you don't deserve nothing less. I understand that some people will not like me or disappointed for my mistake, but just know that I will never give up, and I will try my absolute best to represent Nebraska Pipeline, and that I owe this university nothing less than everything. With that being said, I would like to end that chapter of my life right there, and I understand that you guys have to do your job, but I would like to get past it. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought you did a good job with that. He's he's a foreign exchange or foreign student from Germany, and if you didn't know, I mean, he just started playing football like 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, when he first got to campus, I believe was his first. You know, I mean, I saw him on a podcast. They had him and another O lineman used to have a show on the radio like last year. So I saw him on a podcast last year. He's very eloquent, good guy. I'm rooting for him, and not only am I rooting for him, but boy is he vital for us this year for that interior O line. I mean, we really need him. So
we really do.
I hope it wasn't the PEDs that was making him good, like you said.
No. He has some of those eugenics in his blood from back in the day.
Yes, yes.
Because he's get it.
Oh no! Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Where's the joke? Okay. So yeah. A couple more things to touch on, I suppose. We got the latest on Dylan Raiola. So, number 1 quarterback in the country, could still possibly come to Nebraska, but he was going to visit for the spring game. He canceled his visit to the spring game. He only has one official on the calendar, which is his first official in June 2nd to Georgia. And supposedly he's going to schedule more official visits after that. We'll see. That's early June, and he's the number 1 prospect. That's late. And so if he got that official visit to Georgia, just feels like I'm committing that weekend. That's just what it feels like to me. So we'll see where it goes, but not looking good. So So I'm hoping that they have a contingency plan. The good thing is, we got the transfer portal, and we got a good quarterback room as it stands right now. So
yeah, we do. It will be fine, and I just don't want Corby Smort to get him.
Corby Smart.
No, and I'm starting on the whole like. I know it's really easy to hate people that are good, but like, do we really need another like SEC team to be that good? Like
I know.
They've won 2 in a row. They joined Elite Company. Do they really need him? No, because they're gonna get another 5-star.
I agree with you. And
back off. Let us have him.
No, not only that, from Dylan Raiola's perspective.
Yeah.
It's like they just had a quarterback that led them to 2 national championships. Like, what do you like?
That was a walk-on.
If you're just trying to get to the NFL and trying to be a really good football player in the NFL, like I understand Georgia, totally understand it, and then that's ultimately the goal for most of these guys, right? Yeah. But if you're trying to build a legacy in some form or fashion,
if you're trying to really show that you are the guy, because I mean, look at all those Alabama teams, and just in terms of like national championships, and what really have those quarterbacks done? Not a lot in the NFL.
No.
They've gotten maybe 1, maybe 2 years to prove it, and then they're out. But because
Except
when you're
Jalen.
part of, we'll see. When you're part of that kind of machine, that like those really good teams are, you're not the standout player. You know, I mean, you can have your moment in the sun, but you're not the reason they're winning.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're Bo Jackson, unless you're like a freak, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to really stand out at Georgia. You're just not. You're right about that. So if you're trying to cement your legacy as a football player overall, it's just like, man, you can bring Nebraska back. Like, imagine that. Imagine having your dad's name on the stadium and people still think of you first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Imagine what bragging rights that is when you go home for Thanksgiving. Like, oh yeah, Dad, you're a legend, but like, I'm a legend.
Yeah. Like, you're a legend, but I brought Nebraska football back.
Yeah. So it would be a legacy move. It's just this feeling less and less, but like, we're not hearing much from their actual camp. So who knows?
It's
all these people
like,
are just making projections.
Yeah.
But it's based on what he scheduled, so it's not based on nothing. Okay. So do you have any piece of film art that you would like to talk about?
Piece of film art. Let's see. Yes. So I saw in the cinemas Jonathan Wick chapter 4. And have you seen it?
I have not, but I've seen 1 and 2.
Oh,
a long time ago.
Okay. So I saw the most recent John Wick. And I saw it the Tuesday after opening weekend. So there's all this gigantic hype about like, how it was like one of the best action movies ever, and there's all this other stuff. And I found it like just a tiny bit disappointing. Because some of the pacing in the action scenes, sometimes it was a little bit too much,
Really?
I mean, it was a 2.5 hour.
Was it like shaky cam, jump cuts?
It was almost 3 hours long for one. So as an action movie, no.
Whoa.
Yeah. So as the composition of the movie, like the story and like what he was going through and everything, it made sense. But the action scenes within themselves, like he would go through this amazing sequence where he's killing these people in these really cool ways. And then you think he's going to cut to the next scene, but then 3 more people run into the frame. There was a lot of that. Like, okay, they could have just kind of like in the Batman, like when that really cool scene, the car chase and everything, and Batman's walking with the fire, and then you cut there, but no, and then they do this weird, like when he's bending down, like it coming out of a pipe. So there's a lot of those like weird, they should have cut it early type stuff. But some of these action scenes were crazy. Just the camera movement, you could tell that they still care about the stunt performers that are doing it. They want to highlight as much of that as possible. There's some shaky cam, but that's just action. But they really let you take in what these performers were doing, and it's really impressive. And how it ends, they're talking about 5. I'm okay with 4. And one of the biggest reasons for that is like watching it from John Wick, the first John Wick, and where he ended in chapter 4. It was kind of based in reality, and I've heard this from other people as well. Like it was based in reality, really, and it was all like kind of practical stuff. And like he was just a guy. He got tired. He got shot and like all this other stuff. But he's in some of these things that like he survives now. Like he survived getting thrown into cars. At one point, he just jumps off a building to get away from people, like bursts through and then lands on
for
a
the
car.
bushes.
Yeah, basically aim for the bushes, and then he hops up and he's fine. So there's that. But there's one scene I literally laughed, and it was supposed to be really badass, but it was kind of what I was talking about. Like they should have ended it where they did. So like the final scene, I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything, but there's this long staircase where he's going up to like meet the final boss or whatever. And so he's like fighting all these people, and he kills maybe 20 or 30 people climbing up the stairs. And then this one, like one of the bigger henchmen that they always have in action movies, he shows up, hits him, and he falls all the way down like 30 flights of stairs that he just fought up. And then he has to fight up again with more people. So it was literally the same scene. Like they could have just had the guy like at that, like, so it was like a lot of that, and it was like the scene, and I saw it with one of my buddies, and we both thought about the scene from Hot Rod, where he's like, what? Like, and he's just falling down the hill, and it's like, it is so long, but that's how long he was falling down the stairs. It was so long.
I always forget about Hot Rod. That movie is so good. Yeah. But that's hilarious. And it wasn't like they weren't like trying to be funny.
No. I mean, it might have been tongue in cheek. I don't know. But so all that to say, it is worth a watch, especially if you're a fan of action movies and John Wick in general. It's still better than a lot of the crap that gets put out by studios. 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Nice. I haven't seen the most recent one, but I mean, I like the John Wick movies I saw, and I like Keanu Reeves. He's a fun actor. He's sort of found his niche these days. And I don't know. It sort of reminds me. Some of the movies he makes just sort of reminds me of like some of the old school samurai movies, maybe even. You know, they're just very action heavy and
stoic. The stoic hero.
Yeah, the stoic hero. Exactly.
Yeah, and he's like all of the lines in the John Wick franchise are the one line from The Matrix, I know Kung Fu. Like that is John Wick though. Every single line delivery was I know Kung Fu with different words.
Yeah. It's sort of like John Wick exists in the same. It's sort of like John Wick almost exists in the same universe as something like Kill Bill. It's almost to that level, you know what I mean? Like where they Kill Bill, like they push the envelope so much and get the action so crazy that it's funny for a little bit, and then it stops becoming funny and starts becoming just insane. You know what I mean? It gets to a point where it's not even funny anymore how funny it is. So maybe that's what they were going for with that falling down the stairs scene. But 7 out of 10 for Blake on John Wick. I'll give it a look. So I also have a section of this. So Brooks' song of the episode. Brooks' song of the episode. That's technically how you're supposed to pronounce my name with ownership plural. Anyway, or not ownership, not plural. Or plural. Because my name ends in an S. Anyway. So I am a huge fan of the band The Grateful Dead. And they are notorious, like a lot of bootleg copies of their songs. So for this first one that I'm not going to play the whole thing. I just wanted to play like a 20-second snippet of it. No, I'll be fine. We'll be fine. Okay. No. We'll be fine. Stop. No, this will be fine.
Okay. Our video is going to be demonetized now, bro.
Oh, yeah. We're making so much money on this. And no, it's not. Like, that's one of the reasons I chose the Dead. But there's matter of fact, there's only a couple bands that, like, you can't play any of their stuff anywhere. You know what I mean? For the most part, as long as it's fair use, it's you're just playing it for a couple seconds and you're just showing a sample, so it's good. But anyway, so this song is Candyman by the Grateful Dead. It's a really good song. It's sort of country psychedelia from the 60s/70s. It's on their album American Beauty. It's one of my favorite sections of this song, and probably one of my favorite sections of possibly any song, is the steel pedal solo that comes in the middle of the song. So no. Their version of Candyman is a lot darker than that. And that's not Candyman, that's Lollipop.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Ain't got no friend till Candyman comes around again.
So, well, let me finish it. Whoops. So, that pedal steel solo, I love it. It's fantastic. The notes feel like they're coming out of space. You know,
Yeah.
it feels like an alien spaceship has come in
I was
from
going to
close
say
and-
Hawaii. It gave me, you just showed up at the Four Seasons, like Wahoo or something.
Sure, I can see that. I can see that. But yeah, to me, it always felt like a UFO coming out of nowhere, just delivering the notes from space. I mean, it's just really an amazing song, and it's one of those songs that's sort of a folk song that a lot of people have versions of, and they sort of slightly alter the lyrics here and there, but the theme remains similar. So that was their version of Candyman by the Grateful Dead, and you should check it out. It's a really great song.
All right. Well, I think that's going to be it for us today on Cornhusker.
Podcast.
What?
Podcast?
Always remember that there's no place like this.
This podcast? Sorry, you froze.